Allman in the Morning. Common Sense Radio.
Poor Jeff. We went from bad to worse.
Happy birthday.
That's right. Because we love him.
Yeah, we do. That's right.
Hey, welcome to Allman in the Morning. Tim Jones in for Jamie Allman here at FM News Talk 97.1. Happy Thursday. We've had a very, very busy morning, very busy week. Supreme Court hearing of the case that came out of St. Louis, or out of Missouri. Lots going on internationally, North Korea, et cetera, and so forth. We're going to break down a lot of that with the next guest I've been waiting for all morning to speak with, Chris Wallace. Chris Wallace, the host, of course, of Fox News Sunday at Fox News Sunday, Sundays, 9 a.m. Central. Hey, Chris, good morning. How are you?
I'm good, Tim. How are you?
I am. It's really an honor to speak with you. I really mean that. I'm a huge fan. I watch Fox News Sunday every week, and I've been doing that for a long time. I'm a former legislator here in the state of Missouri, and I've been followed you for a long time. My political upbringing.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
So, Chris, where to begin? How about North Korea? Vice President Trump or Vice President Pence is still over, right? He's still in Asia, I believe, this week.
Yes.
And we were speaking earlier about this. Do you get a sense of the formation of the Trump foreign policy here? Do you think it's taking shape at all, or not, or what's your opinions on that?
Well, I think it's still a work in progress, and I'm not clear what it is, and I'm not sure they're clear what it is. Clearly, one part of it is that he's not going to be so what they very dismissively in the Trump camp call paralysis by analysis of what they felt was the over micromanaging, over consideration of every conceivable downside when it comes to the projection of the use of force. We've seen this as a president, whether it's firing 59 missiles into Syria, whether it's dropping the mother of all bombs in Afghanistan, who's prepared to project force. But, and I don't mean to belittle it, but that's the easy part. The hard part is figuring out, what do you do about Syria? What do you do about North Korea? North Korea is a perfect example. It clearly is unacceptable for us to allow North Korea to get to the point where they would be able to put a nuclear warhead on an intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM, that could hit the U.S. That is just unacceptable. It would be a clear and present danger to the U.S. Having said that, how do you stop that? Because I think what some folks don't fully realize is the danger of military force. And this may sound a little bit like, well, I was going to say the Obama administration, but this has been the thing that has scared everybody going back to the 1980s when I covered Ronald Reagan, and that is that they have thousands, literally thousands of short-range missiles aimed at South Korea. Seoul, the capital of South Korea, in the metropolitan area, has got over 20 million people, including 25,000 U.S. troops. And you take a you take a preemptive strike to knock out their nuclear operation or knock out their missiles, and you could end up getting 1 million people killed. So there's no easy answer there. If there were, we would have solved the problem a long time ago. Right,
Chris. And I think the thing that a lot of times I think we over here it's so far away on the other side of the world, and we get very complacent. And okay, there's the crazy little dictator again. But yesterday, when I watched that video that they had produced of a missile hitting California, it sent a chill down my spine.
You point out it was a fake video of theirs, but they were celebrating it. They had a band playing, and they were throwing a missile from North Korea and then flying and smashing into, I think, San Francisco, and then, great celebration of that. It scares the hell out of me.
It was like watching something out of, 1980, like George Orwell. It was like something like that, because it's such a freakish regime. I think the whole thing, we're just like, does that really happen? But it does. So The one thing Trump seems to be it appears to be very directly to the Chinese, though, about weighing in finally on the situation. Because doesn't China really probably hold the cards here with North Korea? I mean, maybe it's time for this regime to go.
Well, I'm not sure they do. I'd say a couple of points about that. I'm not sure they do. And remember what President Trump said about his meeting with President Xi in Mar-a-Lago a couple of weeks ago. He said that Xi spent about 10, 15 minutes explaining the relationship between China and North Korea, and it isn't like, as a lot of people think, and again, you talk about, we get a little complacent or a little simplistic about what goes on the other side of the world. They can't, snap their fingers and suddenly the North Korea is going to buckle under. And in fact, I learned this the other day, which I was kind of shocked at, is that President Xi, the president of China, has never met Kim Jong-un. And I think maybe is sort of shaking his head and perturbed about him. And here's the other thing, that what they're really concerned about, you talk about, well, let's have regime change. The problem is, if North Korea falls, China is right on the border with North Korea, and there are millions of people who are living, just this side of the state of poverty, but are scared to leave because of the fact that there are armed guards. If the regime were to fall apart, you could have millions of refugees flow into China, and the area that's right on that border is the Rust Belt. It's their equivalent of the Rust Belt. And that would be very destabilizing to China. So they're concerned. They do not want to see. They don't like Kim Jong-un, my guess is, any more than we do. But they don't want to see Pyongyang fall apart, and suddenly they got a huge problem domestically because they've got millions of North Korean refugees in their country.
Long term, if we had a magic wand, is it even remote? Have you talked to anybody that said, is it even remotely possible to have a united Korea at some point, like Vietnam eventually did, or are they just two places? Just
well, remember the way we got it in Vietnam was the communists won. So
right.
That's the problem. Are you talking about a united Korea that's all communist, or a united Korea that's all capitalist? I think China would not want that, because they don't want a top U.S. ally, a free, democratic, pro-Western Korea, a South Korea, victorious Korea, on their border. I mean, they kind of like having North Korea as a buffer.
They like the buffer.
It's just really complicated.
So, meanwhile, while our attention's been diverted as the hostilities seem to escalate in Korea, North Korea, South Korea, I assume Assad is still up to no good in Syria. I mean, has there any been developed? It's like there's been radio silence on that, it seems, because our attention's been diverted.
Well, I know one thing they've done is they've had these forced evacuations where they're taking anti-Assad people, not killing them, but taking them out of, forcing them to leave areas that they want to have control over, putting them on buses and just sending them off. And yes, I think some of the conventional bombings are continuing, not chemical weapons, but conventional weapons. And as Secretary of State Tillerson pointed out, that if you're dead, it doesn't much matter whether you were killed by a conventional weapon or a chemical weapon. You're still dead.
Tillerson. I've been impressed with Tillerson. I don't know if you have or not, but he was somebody I didn't know very much about at all, and he was the one that seemed to early on get really attacked, definitely by the left and some of the Democrats. But his confirmation went more smoothly than many thought, and he seems to have really hit his stride pretty early in this administration.
I would slightly disagree with you on that. I think that he hit it. I don't think he hit his stride early. I thought he actually hit his stride kind of late. But I do think he's hit his stride, and that's where I agree with you. And after, instead of being missing in action for maybe the first month and a half, I really feel in the last 3-4 weeks that he has come on more and been a stronger spokesman for the Trump administration and for the United States about where to the degree that there are clear policies. I mean, let me give you an example of kind of confusion.
Okay.
So we have this referendum in Turkey this week.
Right.
The result of it is that Erdogan, who's the president of Turkey, gets more power, and there's a lot of concern that he's going to become a kind of dictator.
Mm-hmm.
And they're cracking down on a lot of the political opponents of the Erdogan regime. So the State Department is saying We're very concerned about this. We want to see a democratic path to Turkey. It's a member of NATO. And on the other hand, and expressing some concern about where things are headed. On the other hand, President Trump calls President Erdogan to congratulate him and talk about working together. Now, you could say, well, there's a kind of a good cop, bad cop relationship going on there. But there is some concern of that the administration doesn't speak with a unified voice or message on a lot of issues. Like one of them is Assad. Remember, right after the missile strike in Syria, you had Tillerson talking about, well, listen, our top priority and the thing we got to keep focused on is getting rid of ISIS. But on the other hand, you had Nikki Haley, the UN ambassador, talking about, well, we got to get rid of Assad. So, and those two things don't necessarily go together.
I almost wonder if they do it on purpose, though. It's almost like, I know it makes people uncomfortable, but it's almost like they like to keep people on their toes.
Well, then they're doing a pretty good job of it.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Hey, Chris, do you know who you've got coming up yet on Sunday? You're still working on that.
It's a work in progress. I mean, there are a lot of people sort of wonder a little bit about booking the show, and I think
sure, I do.
We just sort of decide, who would. It's like a menu, and we'll take a secretary of this and a senator of that, and we'll just have a nice menu.
Right.
But we're waiting for the White House to decide who they're going to put out this week. If they put a foreign policy person out, maybe we'll want to have a domestic person for the second segment, or vice versa. So Thursday is always the tough day, and man, when it goes into Friday, as it did last week, then it's really tough. Then we really don't like it. But it's the news business, and sometimes, heck, on Saturdays you change, and you have to, because you want to give people on Sunday morning the very best guest you can on the subject that's of most interest to them at that moment.
Absolutely. Do you think you might get into Gorsuch's first week on the bench at all? There's been some interesting news there.
I don't think so.
No?
He's just asking questions. I think it's interesting to see that he's seems very comfortable, and he was asking questions and interrupting, the litigants and the cases, and he's going to be a solid guy. I mean, I think he's going to be a solid conservative guy, but he was very impressive. I think that was one of the clear successes for Trump in these first 100 days was appointing him and getting him through.
Yeah, the reason I asked, we had that Trinity Lutheran case came from Missouri, so we were all watching that this week. So anyway, I was just curious to see your thoughts on that.
Yeah, but remember, that case won't get decided probably until May or June. So
right. We'll get back to that later.
We'll get back to that later, yeah.
Hey, Chris Wallace, thank you.
It's like drinking water out of a fire hose. Sometimes it's just too much to swallow.
I understand that. Chris, it was great talking to you at Fox News Sunday. Chris Wallace, this Sunday, he'll have a big lineup one way or the other.
One way or the other. And I will just say this real quickly. We have a great power player, as somebody who I've admired and finally got to meet Jane Goodall, the chimpanzees, and that we got to spend some time with her. She's 83 now. What a story, and some fabulous video of her with the chimps in Africa.
Yes.
And the huge scientific breakthroughs she made through her study of the shrimp. So
that's awesome
to talk about.
Well, Jamie will be back next week, but you can tease him. He's down in Florida hunting snakes and alligators. So.
Are you serious?
No, I'm not serious. But he's afraid of them though, because somebody
I'm
told him about that.
Of alligators, because I just stay away from them. Snakes. I run like a little girl. I'm not very good about snakes.
Somebody told him that the snake thing coming up through the plumbing is a real thing, and so now he's a little concerned about it. So, yeah.
Oh. No, I don't know why you mentioned that to me. You've now ruined this conversation.
I tried to do a little bit of almond in injecting into this convo we just had. So
All right.
Chris, great to talk to you. Seriously, thank you. Have a great one. Chris Wallace, Fox News Sunday. The always entertaining Chris Wallace. Man, that was great talking to him. He's always a lot of fun. He's fantastic.
He is. He's awesome.
Yes. So we'll come back, wrap up the show on a very busy Thursday. Tim Jones in for Jamie Allman, FM News Talk 97.1. Keep it right here.